Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for downloading, listening. However you get your podcast, you are back here in the humble arms of the Retro Gamers. Larry here.
And Anthony here.
What's up?
I don't know. What is up this time? I don't, I feel
the sun and the moon.
Yeah, I know. Talking to you every week, eventually I run out of things to tell you.
When we were younger, we would talk every day. We'd see each other at school. We hang out all the time. We never were at a loss for words. Now, when we get old here, we don't know what to say or do.
I think that's partially we're sick of each other, and partially we're older and forget things.
That little column A, little column B.
Yeah, but it's all good. Everything's good here. Good, solid first week of 2018. Yeah, right. Getting back into the work thing. Wishing I wasn't getting back into the work thing, and trying to eke in some video game play here and there, and failing miserably.
It's funny, now with 2018, you're right. I'm really trying to. This year, I'm going to make it all about playing more games. I'm starting to collect these games. I might as well play them, both new and old. Last night, I was up to about 3 o'clock in the morning playing Super Mario Odyssey. Finally broke 400 moons. I think
Congratulations.
409, I think.
Very nice. Almost halfway there.
Yeah, I'm doing it slowly but surely. There's just some stuff, man. Some of those moons are just terrible to find, and the other ones. It's so hard to decipher the the art images.
Yes.
When you take a picture, the codes.
Yeah, the art ones are really tough, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and just say, I challenge anybody to find all 880 moons, because you have to buy 119 of them.
Yeah.
But I challenge anybody to go and find all 880 moons without getting a little bit of help. I'm not going to lie. I did need help on something.
Oh, I've already checked a couple of things real quick. Just kind of seeing how to go about it. So, yeah, I won't lie. I've done it as well. So for those just playing the game real quick, Super Mario Odyssey, there's a couple, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 moons. There may be more. I don't know yet. But 2 or 3 moons where you gotta pretty much, you have a picture of either Mario's face or a Goomba. It disappears, and you got to kind of put the face back together, and you got to get a score of like 60. But when you put the face back together, the pieces disappear. So it's really a lot by memory. Remember this?
Yep. Okay.
So there's one on the cloud level that's a Goomba, and when you do it the second time, you have to get an 80% or a score of 80 or more. Now, the last 2 times I've done it, I've done this bad boy. I've taken a picture of it on my phone before it disappeared and did my damnedest to match it up. And to try and get a score of 80 or more now with this Goomba is killing me. I tried like 5 times. I keep getting like 67, 68, something like that.
Nice. I was very fortunate enough to get, for that one, I got 80 on the first try. I got over 80.
Good for you.
But you'll find at another point in the game that there's one that requires 90. So good luck.
I figured. Trust me, I figured.
Good luck with that.
All right.
But no joke. There are some moons in there where I literally I got to a point where it's like, there's no way I'm going to figure this out. And I went to look it up online. And when I looked it up to figure out how to get it, I'm like, there is no way any human being will be able to figure this out without looking it up. I'm sorry. There are some of those moons where I'm not kidding you, where it's like, you have to do these weird things like in succession to find it, and I'm like, no way anybody's going to figure that out. Sorry.
Well, look, there's 999 moons. Not all of them are going to be easy to find. So.
No, I get, I expect some of them to be difficult, but there are a few that are damn near impossible without help.
Well, that's Nintendo for you.
Hey, it's a challenge.
It works. So that's some of the new games. Right now, I want to. Yeah, what do you got?
Hold that thought.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of new games, since I completed Mario Odyssey and took a week off of gaming, I needed to find a new game to play. And when I say new game, I mean something for my collection, because I have over 400 games.
Wow.
And 22 systems now. I keep losing count. I think I'm at 22. And I bought a PlayStation 4 7 months ago, maybe?
Really?
No, 6
Was
months
it that
ago.
long ago? Okay.
It was July, 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I bought a PlayStation 4. I've yet to play anything on it. And I have 7 games.
Sounds like me, with a lot of old movies I used to have in DVDs.
Right. Yeah, so it's just crazy because I have so many games and we do retro live streaming and all this stuff. And I was stuck on Zelda for 5 months and then went right into Mario Odyssey, so I wasn't playing the PS4. So I finally put a game in last night and started playing it called Until Dawn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah. It's a great game. Absolutely great game. Because it's like a horror movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's basically a horror movie about eight teenagers at a cabin and stuff starts happening. However,
sounds familiar.
Very, except it's kind of like a choose your own adventure horror movie. So what happens?
Okay.
So what happens is as you're playing through the game, and it's cool. It works like a horror movie. So like you cut to different characters as you're going out. So like one character's like, oh, I'm going to go upstairs and take a bath, and they go upstairs, and then you're that character, and then two other characters are like, we're going to go out to the cabin, and then you switch over to them.
Ooh, okay, that's interesting.
So it runs kind of like a movie, but then as you're going, as you're walking and doing things and whatnot, you get to make choices. So you're having a conversation with your girlfriend, and she asks you a question, and it gives you two options. And you choose the answer, and what it does is it causes a butterfly effect in the game.
That's
so cool. Your choice will dictate what happens in the game, and then your choices as you go along will also dictate who survives the massacre, because it's a horror game. So people die along the way based on the choices you've made along the way.
Like life.
Yeah, so like my cousin Michael told me to pick up this game, and then he asked me, he's like, please let me know how you did, because I played through the game and I must have made every wrong choice because I only had the main character standing at the end of the game. Everybody else died.
Every wrong choice sounds like my life.
Yeah, so you should definitely pick it up then and see what happens.
I've seen it. I think they made like a small offshoot or something, almost like not like a DLC, but I could have sworn I saw another version of that game. I may be wrong on that.
Yeah, but the game actually stars, like, they actually had actual actors record it as well. So, like, Hayden Panettiere is the star of the game. And I also, when I was watching the opening credits, Rami Malek is in it, too.
Oh, all right. He's Mr. Robot, right? And he's going to be playing Freddie Mercury?
Yep. Yes.
He looks amazing as Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, he really does. But, it's got a full, Hollywood cast, and it's really interesting. I'm not that far into it so far, but and also the jump scares in it are really good. You have to play it at night.
Oh man!
At night,
I don't handle
lights
those
off.
really well.
No, at night, lights off. The jump scares. It's got a good Resident Evil, like original Resident Evil jump scares.
All right, so I will check that out when it goes on a flash sale. So at least as of right now.
I was gonna say, I'm sure it already is. The game's a few years old.
Oh, okay. I'll check it. Yeah, things have been
it's not new.
A little tight, but not too tight where I myself can't pick up some retro games.
Yeah, so supposedly you went shopping. I
did. And it's yes, I know I'm like a broken record, but this is it's like a new relationship. You finally meet that woman in your life, and the two of you are finally, you just can't get enough of each other, always talking about each other. And then, like 6 months down the road, you realize, you know what, we're just in this to be in it. And then things just start to get level off and become normal. That's my relationship right now, and it's all good with Game On that's out here on Long Island. It's a fresh new relationship between me and the store, and I'm loving every minute of it. So I've talked in the past about it. We have kind of our unofficial go-to retro stores out here on Long Island. It's Game On. Definitely check them out. Out on the West Coast there, Ant. You got, what was it called? Game Dude?
I have Game Dude.
Yes.
Game Dude, like, I call Game Dude like the Costco of gaming. Because it's huge. It looks like a giant warehouse.
Have you brought me there? Like the first or second time I was visiting you after you moved?
Oh, I must have.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, remember they had all the cardboard cutouts and posters on the walls.
Yes, I remember Game Dude now. Yes.
Tall ceiling. Yep.
And then, of course, the piece de resistance, the go-to retro gaming store in the Orient, is Super
Potato. I love Super Potato. I can't wait to go back there.
In Osaka and Tokyo.
Cannot wait to go back there. And then also, we got to add one more to the list, because if you're in Las Vegas...
Oh, yes.
Yes, Las Vegas, a gamer's paradise, which is located right across the way from the Pinball Hall of Fame. I will be going to Las Vegas next weekend.
Oh, lucky you.
I am playing in a hockey tournament, and I will be
Oh.
swinging by the Pinball Hall of Fame and a Gamer's Paradise for sure.
Cool. We got so you know what? We're just pimping ourselves out for any old retro game store. No, but these 4 in particular are awesome places.
Yeah, they're definitely awesome places.
Check them all out.
Yeah, definitely check them out. No question. And if anybody listening has a great retro game place that you wanna mention, just pop it on our Facebook page. And odds are I'll probably wind up traveling to that city at some point because of my job, and I'll check it out.
See, that's what makes it so much easier. Not easier, but more not even convenient, but just a little bit better for you to do the traveling to get to. I'd love to get to these places. I'm dying to get to Gamer's Paradise.
Yeah,
and Super Potato. I'll never.
Well,
get
I
there.
mean, meet me in Vegas.
I'll meet you in Tokyo.
You can meet me in Tokyo if you want to. Also,
next year,
That's
next
fine.
January 4th.
I'll let-
I want to go to Wrestle Kingdom 13.
Oh, there you go. Well, I won't be there.
So I went to Game On today for a few things. I'll show you here in a minute. So actually, no, I'll show you this now, and then we'll get into a very, very funny story. I don't know if I already told you. I can't remember, but whatever. So I went out there, and Game On, wonderful staff. They actually fixed the Game Boy that I purchased from there that just happened to not work, but they were consummate professionals, and they were fixing some new systems as well because Game On just recently didn't buy out, just purchased pretty much the inventory of another game store, which I'll mention in a little bit. So their inventory just skyrocketed. They got some new systems, and I kind of took a peek in the back, and they had some guys back there just taking them apart, fixing them, working on them. Looked great.
All right. Now, before you get into your whole stuff that you bought, I need to ask: did you buy a Virtual Boy?
No, but I guess I'll tell that story now. So if you remember back during the summer, during the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo at the Cradle of Aviation, where myself and Anthony broadcast live, that's where I bought, and it was documented, I bought a Virtual Boy, much to Anthony's chagrin. Chagrin,
that works.
Okay. So yeah, bought it. I was happy, good to go. Brought it home. Was not working. So I brought it back to the place where I got it from. They were again professionals. Gave me full money back. Could not complain. I don't have one bad thing to say about them.
Awesome.
The company that I bought the Virtual Boy from and hence returned it to was called The Revolution. Out here on Long Island.
Yep.
The Revolution, their inventory was just recently bought out by Game On.
Oh.
So guess who has my Virtual Boy in the back of their Miller Place store?
Game On.
Game On. And I mean literally the Virtual Boy that I bought because, A, the stand, which I was already told when I bought it, the stand was broken, and I looked at it. They showed me. It was the stand. And I'm like, they only had like 2 Virtual Boys. And I go, listen, one of these Virtual Boys, one of the left lenses don't work? They're like, yeah, one of them just doesn't work. Yep, that's my Virtual Boy. That's the one I bought and returned.
Nice.
So they're working on it, and I told them, look, once you get this bad boy up and running, this very one, you know what I mean? Literally, even with the broken stand. Let me get back my broken stand. I'll buy a new one from them.
Okay.
Once it's up and running, tell me because I will repurchase it.
So you did not purchase a Virtual Boy?
Not yet.
Okay. So then, okay, good, because then there's still time for me to call them and tell them not to sell you one.
But it's mine. That's technically mine.
No, it's not yours. You brought it back, and you got your money back.
I
so
laid hands on it.
And I'm telling you, every retro store you find, I will call them and tell them not to sell you a Virtual Boy.
Not these guys. They're good.
No, exactly. So they'll understand when I explain it to them.
So
hashtag VB sucks.
I thought that was hysterical. I'm like, does one of the stands? They're like, yeah, one of the stands are cracked. I look at them like that is the exact same one. So I thought that was pretty funny.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
It'll be even funnier when they don't sell it to you because of me.
So some other things that they have, and a lot of places do this. So there's nothing bad about it or anything. They have a lot of reproductions, homebrews, if you will.
Yes.
So let me rephrase that. They don't have a lot. They have a few. Some of them are amazing. There's one that's a Contra that is just pretty much kind of like a hacked version of Contra. Adjust like the levels adjusted. Contra's hard to begin with. This one's wickedly hard. I played it. I was playing for about 6 or 7 minutes. I was still on level 1, and it was not like I stopped. I kept moving. The level is ridiculously long.
That's cool.
And it's so hard, you automatically start with 8 lives.
Oh, you can't put the Konami code in?
I didn't try it. I wasn't there that long.
Man, you gotta. Yeah, I mean, if somebody's making a homebrew Contra and they do not put in the Konami code, then it is not a Contra game.
But just the fact that you start with 8 lives, that tells you a lot right there. And it's a legit hard game.
Okay. Well, did you buy it?
No, they didn't have any in stock. So, but what I did purchase, which I played a little bit of, and I'm going to try it out in a little while, is a game. It's Castlevania Overflow Darkness.
Ooh.
Sounds interesting. It's a reproduction. All right, I just sent you a link there to show you a little bit of that Castlevania.
Yeah, no, I'm watching it right now. I mean, it's very Castlevania 1.
Yeah, very much so. I played a little bit of it, the beginning level, while I was at the store. Again, another one that's just it's difficult right out of the box.
Well, I mean, Castlevania games are always naturally difficult, you know? I mean,
but like when you talk about a difficult ROM hack, like take what's normally difficult and just multiply it by like tenfold.
Well, no, I see it. It's like there's a never-ending run of enemies in this one.
Oh yeah. So
I feel like
it's a fun one to play.
It looks pretty fun.
Yeah. So so that's and I'll post links as well.
But you know, I do need to bring up though. I mean, should you move on to this Castlevania game when you still haven't completed Castlevania 2?
This is not a canon game, so I don't think it's a problem.
Okay.
Now, that's Castlevania. Really nice red cart. Very, very cool looking. So that's that.
Oh, let me ask you something. How much do places like Game On charge for homebrew games?
You know what? They're reasonably priced. Depending on the ROM, because these are basically just ROMs. Some of them are ROMs I just put on a disc. Some are legit hacks. They're going to vary in price. The ones that I got today, really not bad. It's not like buying a brand new game, but at the same time, it's kind of like buying like not a uber high end, but maybe ones that are very difficult to find as well. So the prices are going to vary.
Okay, but but they're fair prices.
Yes, I will definitely say that.
Okay, cool.
So now the other two. Here we go. You're going to like these two.
Okay, now are these homebrews or are these actual officially released?
One's not.
Okay.
And the one that's not, it's borderline, and I'll explain why in a moment. Let's talk about the one that.
All right, I'm intrigued.
Yes, the one that is. Again, I'm just going to send a link here to Anthony, which I'll post later. Well, this link, I got to find a different link because. Basically, just pull the curtain back.
You keep saying Link, which makes me think it's a Zelda game. So let's see.
Ironically, yes, this one is a Zelda game.
Aha!
But the
I knew
URL that I'm sending you, I can't stand the guy who's reviewing the game. I'm not going to mention his name. He's very annoying. But I just wanted to send it to you to see some of the video.
Yeah. Well, I am not. I will not say his name, nor will I put the volume on.
Yeah. So this one is called The Legend of Zelda Parallel Worlds Remodel. It is It is a Link to the Past hack, if you will.
Ooh.
That pretty much just changes. Now, I don't know the full story behind the game, but it's a different version of Link to the Past. In this one, Link is blonde. So there you go.
Oh, cool. So he went to the hairdresser before he.
Yeah. So this
Very
is
cool.
a fun, different ROM hack, if you will, that was thrown on cartridge, on a Super NES cartridge. And I have a Super Nintendo clone showing up in a couple weeks, so I really hope these work. Because if they don't, no, I'm sure they'll work.
You can bring them back.
I can bring them back. So that's Legend of Zelda Parallel Worlds. I don't know if you ever heard about it, if you ever seen it before.
No, I've never seen it. But is it basically just? I wonder if it's just basically a almost like a sequel to A Link to the Past, since it's the same world.
I think you could probably look at it in that way. Probably the difficulty level again is probably ramped up just a little bit.
Probably.
And looks like just by skimming through this, some of the levels just look different. So. And That is Legend of Zelda Parallel Worlds.
All right, so what is Parallel Worlds? Is it like a sequel to Link to the Past, or what?
It's basically a fan overhaul. Let's call it like that.
Okay.
New graphics, new music, new overworld, new underworld, a different storyline. Yeah, so it's got, again, forgive me, I don't have the full story behind it, but like I said, with the video that Anthony's watching, and I'm going to put up some other ones a little bit later.
Yeah, but it essentially takes place though in the same world of Link to the Past, like the same map and all that stuff. So that's really interesting.
Again, with the difficulty level ramped up, because if you're going to make a ROM hack, if you're going to make a homebrew, you don't want to make it easy. Exactly. So that's that game. Now this other one. Again, let me send you a URL.
Okie dokie. Now this one's not a homebrew, right?
No. Well, no. Here's what it is. And
no. Well, no.
It's
maybe.
As I'm sending. Well, first let me show Anthony the video, the box. This is The Legend of Zelda BS Maps 1 and 2.
BS, huh?
Yes. Do you remember when we talked about the online service that Super Famicom had?
Yes.
Where you can download games.
Yes.
This is the downloadable Zelda game that was available on that service, which is essentially also known as Zelda Third Quest. It's a 16-bit version of the 8-bit NES game.
Okay. I want one.
Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. These are the only two he had. I asked.
You bought the only two Zeldas?
Yeah, he only had one of each.
Oh, okay.
I
Thanks
asked
for getting
him. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Nice to know where I stand with you.
Hey. No, but I'm on the lookout. Don't worry. So
right. Yeah, because anything Zelda, I want to play.
This game, I mean, you can download the ROM probably. This is. Just
I'm sure I can, but you know me, I like to own.
Oh, don't get me wrong. This is
wow. This actually looks really cool. I'm watching the video right now.
Right? It's basically the third quest. From what I understand, and I'm going to give a shout out to One Coin Only because he did a playthrough of this game on his Facebook page. So, when you get a chance, go look that up. Because
then it's gonna give away when I buy it and play it.
True, fair enough.
So because I will after we're done talking, I'm probably gonna go on eBay.
And what he said was One Coin Only because I haven't played it yet. If I heard him correctly, I think because it was a downloadable game and the size of the game and memory and everything, this one is a quicker game to play. I think he said you can probably do it in like 20, 25 minutes, maybe a half hour, but it's just fun. It's just a fun game.
That's interesting.
I may be wrong on that time. It may be a little bit longer, especially if you play through it the first time.
Well, I was going to say, it must be because you have to, if it's a third quest, you still have to go through 8 dungeons to get the Triforce and then, beat the bad guy.
The couple of dungeons I saw him play through, the dungeons looked smaller than normal.
Oh, okay.
But again, difficulty ramped up. So
awesome.
So that's what I picked up. And not only that, he also had, which is out there, you can find, another, forgive me, I can't remember what BS stood for. It's not what you think it is. It's whatever the service was.
But that's what everybody's going to think it is, and that's what I think it is. Yeah. So just leave it at that.
Also, F-Zero 2 that was downloadable on that service.
Ooh.
I almost bought that one today, but I opted not to.
Is F-Zero 2 kind of the...
I played it.
All right, so is it the 60? Is it for Super Nintendo?
Yes.
Is it 16-bit? Okay.
Yeah, these ROMs are for Super Nintendo. It plays just like F-Zero, but the board design is different, so it just gives a different look to it. There was also another fan ROM hack, if you will, that I saw that if it's still there one day, I may pick it up later. I think it was called, if I remember it correctly, Super Castlevania Final Mission. It almost looked like a Dark Samus. It plays like the 16-bit Super Metroid. I don't think
why would it be a Dark Samus if it's Castlevania?
I said Castlevania. I'm sorry, I meant Super Metroid. Forgive me.
Oh, Super Metroid. Yeah. Okay, because you said Castlevania.
Oh, my bad. I'm
don't confuse the two.
It was not on the service. I think it was just a fan-made hack. Again, you can find the ROM out there.
Okay.
I played that for a minute. That looked really fun, really dark, really difficult. And then there was, which we saw, I know you looked at it, you didn't purchase it, but you saw it at the Retro Gaming Expo, the Chrono Trigger, something of blood, or Crimson something.
Yeah, it was another Chrono Trigger game.
Yeah, it was like a fan hack or whatever.
Yep.
So it was just really cool to see these. And,
well, there were, people are making homebrew games left and right, like every day. And in fact, one of the things that I was, like I always do before we record, is I try and find retro news, to see what's going on. And I found a couple of things. One is there's a game coming out this year. It's called it's a Metroidvania based game.
Okay.
Called the Messenger.
Ooh.
And it's a Canadian developer called Sabotage Studios. And basically, it's a Metroidvania game, so it's a cross between Metroid and Castlevania. So it's side-scrolling with a mix of role-playing game elements. That's what Metroidvania game means.
Kind of like Symphony of the Night would be considered the first one.
Right. But the cool thing about it is, like, halfway through the game, it's 8-bit. It's an 8-bit game, but halfway through the game, the hero in the game moves forward in time, and then the style switches to 16-bit.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, so the time travel element's really cool. So you start in 8-bit and then you move on to 16-bit when the hero travels through time. And the game is you play as a young ninja, tasked with carrying a powerful scroll which his clan's survival depends on. So he crosses through, worlds and battles a demon army that attacks his village, and then at some point he has to travel through time. So it's been winning awards. It's won some awards at different festivals and whatnot. It's coming out this year, so I thought that was an interesting thing to bring up since we're talking homebrew stuff.
Absolutely.
And then additionally, I found this other guy. This kid, this 19-year-old.
That bugs me.
Right, this 19-year-old who is releasing. He actually started something several years ago called Game Bueno, and basically it's a home built handheld game. And now he's releasing something else, and he's actually going to be at the Consumer Electronics Show with this called Maker Bueno. And basically, it's a build-your-own handheld game, and you design your own games for it.
Oh, that's cool. Look at this thing.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So it's all about do-it-yourself. It's basically a do-it-yourself retro handheld console.
Oh, that's cool.
And gaming console. So you build the console, you build the little retro, you build the handheld console, and then you build the game yourself.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so apparently the Game Bueno that he did a few years ago, he's 19.
That
a few years ago,
upsets me even more.
I know it did so well that when he went on Kickstarter for the sequel to that, the Maker Bueno, which is going to be showing off at the Consumer Electronics Show, he made 9 times the amount of money he was trying to raise on Kickstarter.
Wow.
So definitely, yeah, and you can basically buy the Maker Bueno for $50. So it's the cost of a game.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
No, not bad at all. And it literally comes in pieces. Your job is to put it together yourself. So it's like teaching you how to do your own handheld console. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So since you decided to buy some homebrews, actually, these were perfect things to discuss right now because I just think this is really cool. I'm probably going to pick it up. I'll pick it up myself, and then I'll probably call the guy for tech help. I hope he has a customer service hotline.
And how do you put it together? How about I just hire you to come over and put it together for me?
Yeah, it's like, can you just come by? I'm like, I don't know how to do this.
Just
I'm too old. I'm too old to put this together.
So these, ROM hacks, ROMs, homebrews, I just backed last week. We talked about Xenocrisis. That's on Kickstarter right now. That you can two of the rewards. One is the game to come out to be playable on the Dreamcast, and another one is the game to be playable on the Genesis. And you get a Genesis cartridge, you get a Dreamcast disc.
Wow.
So it's really cool to see these new games on these old systems, especially now that I'm getting, yes, I know you have a lot of the originals, which is awesome. I'm getting these clones. I'm getting this Genesis to SNES converter thing. Hopefully that will work, even though I do have a Genesis, but I have no room. And I was talking to Game On. They have a TurboGrafx 16, but I did not buy it today because I am trying my best to be a little bit conscious of what I'm spending.
So you'll buy it tomorrow?
Next payday.
Okay.
So ROMs, hacks. Let us know some of your favorite ROMs, hacks, homebrews. Check it out, or let us know on the Facebook page, facebook.com/RetroGamersPod. Whoa, I forgot for a second. Facebook.com/RetroGamersPodcast. And let us know some of your favorite ROMs, hacks, homebrews, all that fun stuff. And it's 2018. Time for a bunch of new expos coming out, and we got one coming up February 17th. If you're in Brooklyn, actually right where our old stomping grounds were, where we grew up.
That's right, where we were birthed.
Yeah, pretty much. Aviator Sports and Event Center over at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn is having their Aviators Retro Gaming Tournament and Expo February 17th, 2018. That's Saturday, February 17th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Their tournament is pretty cool. They got tournaments happening for NBA Jam, WWE No Mercy, and more.
Oh, I might have to fly in for that.
There is a No Mercy tournament. And,
okay.
Tickets.
Say no more.
Just find Aviators Retro Video Game Tournament and Expo. We'll have the link up on our Facebook page. And most important, early Expo tickets are $10 plus processing fee. But you can put in the code RetroGamersPod to save 20% on your adult ticket. So,
wow.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
We're offering sales here.
We're doing it. We're breaking barriers, folks. We're breaking the glass ceiling. So check it out. Retro Gamers Pod. We'll put up the link as well that will give the discount for adult tickets. $10 early expo ticket. Child's ticket 12 and under is $5. And then various tickets for the tournaments. NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, MLB Slugfest. Like I said, WWE No Mercy. I will always say that.
WWF No Mercy.
And NHL 94.
Oh, man. Okay, so will the Retro Gamers be there?
Retro Gamers will be there. And we will have
at least one of us will be there. I gotta check my work schedule.
I'll be lugging everything in. We'll talk more about it in the weeks to come. But use the promo code RetroGamersPod, 20% off your adult ticket for the Aviators Retro Gaming Tournament and Expo, Saturday, February 17th, 2018.
All right, Larry. So we talked about your experience over at Game On, and we went through some other cool little retro news things and. I think it's been a while since we've done a retro spotlight.
Been a while. Yeah, it's been a little bit.
No, don't quote songs. I've told you that. Stop doing that.
As long as we do it under 5 seconds, we're good.
No seconds. 0 seconds. So I thought we would go back. It's 2018, and since we've officially retired this week in gaming, since we can only go so long with that.
Sorry, Josh.
Sorry, Josh. You'll just have to create a new intro for us somewhere. That makes our ears bleed. But anyway,
love it.
So I wanted to do a retro spotlight this week on something that I now own and have never played and still haven't played because I haven't had time to play it, but I have it hooked up and it's ready to go.
Your MO.
It's always my MO. Look, I bought like 20 games. Hey, I have no time to play them. And the same thing here. So a couple of months ago, my cousin was kind enough to give me his Sega Saturn because it was just collecting dust in his attic. And I was very grateful for it, and I was very happy, and I was super excited to live stream it as soon as I got it, and it's a month and a half later, and I haven't done any of that. But I thought it would be cool to at least do a retro spotlight on the Sega Saturn, and maybe this will actually give me the kick in the pants I need to turn it on and play it. So this week's retro spotlight is going to be on the Sega Saturn console.
All right.
So, the Sega Saturn, based on its name, was developed and published by Sega.
Nice.
It was released in Japan November 22nd, 1994.
Really? I thought it was a little later than that. Okay.
No, November 22nd, 1994.
Interesting. Okay.
Which was the 31st anniversary of the Kennedy assassination, but this was in Japan, so I'm sure they didn't care.
Oh, I figured that's why they released it.
Oh, all right. It was released in North America May 11th, 1995, so about 6 months later.
Okay.
And then a couple of months after that, it made its way over to Europe, July 8th, 1995. Okay, so the Saturn was developed and supervised by Hideki Sato, who was Sega's director and deputy general of research and development.
Deputy.
And what?
Deputy. I find that very funny.
Oh, deputy general manager.
Yeah.
Deputy general manager, not deputy general. It's not the army. So anyway, the Saturn project started actually 2 years before the system was showcased at the Tokyo Toy Show in June of '94. So that means they started this thing in 1992. That was roughly, I want to say, about 3 years into the Sega Genesis cycle.
Okay.
The name Saturn was initially the system's code name during development, but then they just decided to make it the official name of the system. Because a lot of times they do that in turn, so people don't find out what they're working on. The same way that the GameCube was the Dolphin, and there are a whole bunch of other
Revolution.
code names. Yeah,
the
Revolution.
Ultra 64, actually. Yeah.
The Ultra 64, which eventually just became the Nintendo 64. So basically, the Sega Saturn was announced to release at the end of 1994, and it was going to cost approximately $250 to $300. So what happened was in 1993, Sega and Hitachi. I don't know if you remember Hitachi is electronics. Yeah. So they actually formed a joint venture to develop a CPU for the Saturn, which wound up being the engine that was in it. And they put that together and they also put it together for cost and efficiency because they didn't want it to be too expensive, because at this point in time, everybody was still enjoying their Super Nintendos, their Genesis,
Genocide. Oh, maybe not.
Genesis, I think. I don't know. Does anybody ever say that in plural? But anyway, the Saturn's design was basically finished by the end of 1993, and the one key thing about the Saturn was they wanted the CPU, they wanted it to have a single CPU that was powerful enough to calculate a 3D world. This was going to be the first system to have 3D environment games. Now, at the time, if we remember, the Atari had a Jaguar system which said it was 64. It was going to be a 64-bit system, but it actually turned out to not be that.
Yeah.
So Sega was really pushing to be the first system on the market that can show you a 3D world, which is a really great revolutionary concept at the time. But then what happened was Sony came out in early '94. They announced their PlayStation console that was coming, and based on the technical capabilities of the PlayStation, Sega actually went back into development and created another video display processor for the Saturn to improve the system's 2D performance. So if you actually play Sega Saturn and PlayStation, if you play 2D games on the Sega Saturn and PlayStation, the Sega Saturn 2D games are actually much better than the PlayStation because of this video display processor that they added to it.
Okay.
In an attempt to combat the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Saturn hardware was CD-ROM based, right?
Yep.
It did not. Well, actually, I'm sorry. It was they were going to do CD-ROM based and cartridge only versions of the Saturn hardware.
Really?
Originally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were going to do both, and they were going to release them simultaneously. So that was it. But then they decided, because the cartridges were going to be lower quality, they were just going to stick with the CD-ROM base. So the Saturn could have been so much more confusing at release date, because then you would have had to figure out, it's like, do I want the CD-ROM version or do I want the cartridge version? Which one would be better?
Huh.
So anyway, the president of Sega of America, Tom Kalinske, who I've talked about on the show before because he was a big part of the Console Wars book that I read, and he was he was one of the main reasons why Sega had rose to prominence with the Genesis. But according to him, his company was always fighting against the architecture of the Saturn with Sega of Japan, because they wanted an alternative graphics chip for the Saturn. So Kalinsky, who ran Sega of America, he actually reached out to Silicon Graphics to develop a better chip for the Saturn.
Okay.
But Sega of Japan rejected the proposal and said no.
That's not shocking.
No, not shocking at all. So then what happened was Silicon Graphics, because they were rejected by Sega, they moved on to another little company and decided to develop their technology for the Nintendo 64.
Really?
So the Nintendo 64's tech was built by Silicon Graphics because they were rejected by Sega.
Which is kind of funny because the PlayStation kind of came about with a failed partnership that Nintendo was trying to do. It's like all these companies kind of work off of a slight flub of the other.
Right. So basically, because I mean, at the time they're all working together because I mean they're all in the same industry. They're all in the tech industry, and they're trying to build, so they're trying to build the best tech possible. But sometimes deals don't. Deals fall apart.
Exactly.
And when deals fall apart, your company's got to go find somebody else in order to survive. So Silicon Graphics in this case went over to Nintendo and said, hey, let's work together. And they did. But in the meantime, Sega moved forward with the Saturn. And then while they were working on the Saturn, though, Sega was developing an add-on for the Sega Genesis, which we all know was the doomed Sega 32X, which was... but the
one of us owned that.
One of us did, but one of us did not buy it new. One of us bought it at Funko Land.
Oh, did you really? Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't buy that brand new. Are you crazy? Anyway, so the 32X came out on the Genesis, and the point of the 32X was it was a 32-bit add-on to the Sega Genesis. So now there was a concern by Sega of America that why would anybody want to buy a Saturn when you have a 32X add-on for the Genesis? It's like, why buy a whole new system? We just added a less expensive piece to our current console. And thankfully, I don't know if I should say thankfully or not, but the 32X wound up becoming a failure. So
it was like a system unto its own anyway. It was just siphoning power off the Genesis. It still had its own power adapter. You still had to plug it into the TV and stuff.
Well, I mean, I guess essentially what it was the cartridge-based Saturn that they chose not to release.
Oh, okay. You know what? That didn't even dawn on me while you were talking about it. Okay.
Well, no, I mean, it just came to me as I'm like reading this or as as we're talking about this because they chose not to release the 32-bit the cartridge version of the Saturn, so they just made an attachment for the Sega Genesis to do that. So, but and then the other issue with this is the 32X came out in early '94. They're planning to launch a brand new system at the end of '94, and the 32X wasn't going to be compatible with the Saturn because the Saturn was CD-ROM based. So the shelf life for this 32X was going to be short, if it, in general, because if they wanted to push people to the Saturn, you're not going to want to, hey, everybody, stay on your Genesis, and we'll make a bunch of 32X games, and you never have to buy our Saturn.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the way it turned out, the 32X was not very successful. And I mean, granted, and it would have been easier for people to buy it. It would have been less expensive than the Saturn, but there wasn't enough game support for the 32X, so it kind of fizzled pretty quickly. So anyway, getting back to the Saturn. So now we have the Saturn ready. The Saturn releases on November 22nd, 1994. And remember, I said originally it was supposed to come out for like $250 to $300, which is roughly about, let's say, 320,000 yen, 330,000 yen, if I'm doing that correctly. About 330,000.
So much.
I'm sorry, not 300. 33,000 yen.
Oh, okay. That's
it,
more
not
reasonable.
330. Yeah, so about 33,000 yen. However, when it finally was released on November 22nd, 1994, it released for a retail price of 44,800 yen. So it actually came out about $400 instead of $250 to $300.
Back then, back then that was tremendous.
Yes,
a lot of money.
Basically. And then there were three titles on launch day. There were only 3 titles. You had Virtua Fighter, Panzer Dragoon, and Daytona USA. That's what came out with it.
I remember Daytona USA the most being linked with the Saturn. I don't know why.
Beats me.
Yeah.
But Virtua Fighter, if you remember, was it was one of the first 3D fighting games to come out.
Tremendous.
I mean, I played this Virtua Fighter 2 like crazy in college, but the game basically sold at nearly a 1-to-1 ratio with the Saturn console at launch. So almost everybody who bought a Saturn on launch bought Virtua Fighter.
And it wasn't even a pack-in. So
no, it wasn't a pack-in. You only got the console. You didn't get a game with the console. Sega's initial shipment of 200,000 Saturn units sold out on the first day in Japan. So day one, all 200 units sold. So great sign. Meanwhile, in the U.S., the 32X was released at the same time. It was the day before. So November 21st, 1994, we got the 32X in the U.S. November 22nd, the Sega Saturn comes out in Japan. And basically, the 32X sold at less than half of the Saturn's launch price. So you're talking about, what, $150 to $200?
Yeah.
But after the holiday season, nobody was interested in the 32X anymore. So that just kind of started to fizzle really fast. You're talking about a month and a half after its release. By the end of 1994, 500,000 Saturn units were sold. Now, granted, remember, this has only been out there for a month and a half. At the same time, when the Sony PlayStation was released in Japan around the same time, it only sold 300,000 units. So the Saturn initially was outpacing the PlayStation. However, Sony started to attract more third-party developers to the PlayStation because they decided to charge a very low licensing fee. So licensing fees for licensing fees for systems are very expensive. Like if you want to have a game on it, you got to pay. Sony decided to charge a $10 licensing fee.
Wow.
For PlayStation games.
Now, that sounds cheap.
That's ridiculously cheap. Now moving on, in 95 in the US, Sega of America announced that the Saturn would be released on Saturn Day instead of Saturday. It was called Saturn Day. I know, I mean, they all, Sonic Tuesday and all this stuff. Like,
Mortal Monday.
You got to give it, right? You got to give it to Sega. Sega always tried to make it an event and make it a moment.
Remember the big one for Dreamcast, $99.99.
Yeah, $99.99. I mean, it was perfect.
Yep.
But that's not what they charged for it.
No.
Can you imagine if it came out $99.99 and the system was $99.99?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
That would have been
still
perfect.
Have mine.
I love my Dreamcast. I still think my Dreamcast is one of my favorite systems, and it was it was sad that it failed.
Oh, well.
Anyway, but back to the Saturn. Sega of America announces it's going to come out Saturn Day, September 2nd, 1995. Okay, so got a big event planned and everything like that. Sega of Japan turns around and tells Sega of America, no, we want it coming out before the PlayStation. So you're going to so then at E3 in 1995, which was May 11th, 1995, president of Sega, Tom Kalinske, comes out, gives a keynote presentation, says the Saturn is going to be released at $399, which would include a copy of Virtua Fighter.
Ooh,
so it came with a game for $399, and then he ended his speech by saying, due to high consumer demand, the Saturn has already shipped 30,000 units to stores for immediate release.
Wow.
So he announced at E3 that the Saturn was available right now.
That's nuts.
Yep. So
wow.
You would think that now consumers are going to be ecstatic because there are Saturns out there. Okay. However, the retailers, on the other hand,
well, I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Well, here's the issue: they were only because they had moved up the release date. They were only able to make 30,000 Saturns for launch day. The stores that got the Saturns were Toys R Us, Babbage's, Electronics Boutique, and Software, etc.
Babbage's. Whoa, I haven't heard that one in a long time.
I know. So 4 stores got the Sega Saturn on launch day, which was May 11th.
But those are the 4 big ones.
Wait.
Video games.
Right. But guess what happened?
Uh-oh.
there were a lot of upset retailers who did not get the Saturn. Best Buy, Walmart, and KB Toys. So what they just, yeah. So right, Best Buy was around, so was Walmart, and and these are some major stores around the country.
Mm-hmm.
So in response to what happened at E3, those 3 retailers decided they weren't going to carry the Saturn. Period.
Ooh, stick it to the man.
And they dropped it. So then, and so this all happens at E3, right?
Yeah.
So we've got
panicking.
We've got 30,000 Saturns coming out that day. And we've got four stores getting it, 3 other stores really pissed off and deciding not to carry it. And this is after Kalinski's big keynote presentation. Now, the president of Sony Computer Entertainment of America decides to walk up because the PlayStation isn't out yet, right? So
he just
the
drops
Sony
the mic.
president, Sony president walks up to the stage to give his presentation. Now, Kalinski gave this really huge presentation talking about the Saturn and all this stuff, and then ended it with the $399 price tag. The Sony president, Steve Race, walks up to the mic, stands in front of the crowd, and all he says is $299 and walks away. His entire speech was his entire speech was basically, our system is $100 cheaper, and that was it. $299. That was his entire speech.
Oh my God! It's like a peeing contest between the 2 of them.
Basically, that's what it was. So by October, so 4 months after E3, Sega drops the Saturn price to $299.
Oh, boy.
because Sony is starting to outsell them. Up until the first quarter of 1996, the PlayStation wound up selling against the Saturn 1-to-1, and Sony secured over 20% of the entire U.S. video game market in the process.
Wow!
Now, this is a brand new company, brand new system. They've never made systems before, and they're catching up fast. However, while the PlayStation and Saturn were out, sales of 16-bit hardware systems in '95 still accounted for 64% of the video game market.
Okay, I can see that.
So you had these 32-bit systems out, but the 16-bit systems were still selling well. Sega underestimated that the Genesis would still be doing well after the Saturn came out. So the Saturn was actually suffering from poorer sales because people were still buying the Genesis.
Wow, that's weird.
Well, because think about it this way. The Genesis has a huge library of games. The Genesis is just ridiculously getting positive reviews for years, and they're still putting out games for it. So you can buy a Genesis with a full library of games, or you can buy a new Sega Saturn with 3 games.
Yeah, but like I get that, but then what did Sega? I'm not asking you to answer this question, just something to think about. Like, what did Sega do wrong? Because Nintendo, I never remember that happening with Nintendo. Whenever they put out the new system, it's not like the old one still overtook the new one.
Well, you also have to remember though, like when the Super Nintendo came out, they were still making games for the NES.
Exactly.
What they did was, they continued to support the previous console until it started to fizzle. And then as they felt like it was time to start fading it out, they would make less and less games and then eventually cut it off.
And a lot of times they made games for both NES, Super NES,
Right.
and people kind of made that choice.
Right.
Okay,
And that was in the US. In Japan they would let it run even longer, because remember I said the Famicom wasn't discontinued until 2001.
Honestly, that's nuts. But
Right,
yeah.
and you're talking at that point that you had a Super Famicom and an N64 at that point, and a 64 disk drive in Japan.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of consoles going on at the same time. Now, back to the Sega Saturn. So because Sega underestimated the popularity of the Genesis, they didn't have the inventory to meet demand for the Genesis product.
Almost sounds familiar.
Yeah, basically. So at that point, Sega had 43% of the U.S. video game market by 1995, and they needed to sell more than 2 million Genesis units. That was basically what the demand was in November and December. But because they decided to focus on the Saturn over the Genesis, and with the early release of the Saturn, the miscalculation, Sega didn't have enough Genesis systems to sell in the U.S. anymore.
Oh, wow.
So what happened was consumers started to turn on Sega because of this misstep.
Huh.
Meanwhile, what Sega is known for, of course, after the Genesis came out, was the Sonic the Hedgehog series. The Sega Saturn did not come out with a Sonic the Hedgehog game. Now, they were working on a game called Sonic Extreme for the Saturn. And they had, originally it was going to be a 32X game, and they decided let's push it to the Saturn, and they were working on it, but they were never able to fully complete it. It was supposed to be the first 3D game for Sonic the Hedgehog.
Okay, I see where that's going.
Right. And, however, because the Saturn started to decline in sales while they were developing the Sonic game, they couldn't get the Sonic game completed in time to release, and by the time the Sonic game was going to be ready, the Sega Saturn was basically done. So the Sega Saturn was the only system, well, the Genesis had one, but the Sega Saturn did not have a Sonic the Hedgehog game at all.
Wow.
Which was which was supposed to be a staple for their systems moving forward since Genesis.
Huh.
So
that's like a Nintendo system not having a Mario.
Exactly. That's exactly. So it's like when you come to launch day, like the first thing like Sega should have been thinking was we need a Sonic game with this system, and they just didn't pull it off. And then what happened was, say, Sonic Extreme and all the development that went into that wound up going into Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast,
which was a home run.
Which was fantastic. So now imagine if they had that ready for the Saturn, it probably would have made a big difference in terms of sales for the Saturn. Because by the end of 1995, Sony was outselling Sega 2-1.
Wow.
Yeah. And in 1996, same thing happened. It continued in 1996. Sega's 16-bit sales started to decline sharply because they didn't have enough Genesis systems on the market for demand. And then by the end of 1996, Sony had sold 2.9 million units of the PlayStation, and the Saturn sold 1.2 million units.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yep. And then once the Nintendo 64 came out in 1996, the Saturn was pretty much completely done. And then in 97, Sony released Final Fantasy VII, which increased the PlayStation's popularity significantly in Japan. And once the PlayStation was outselling Sega in Japan, there was really nothing left for them to do.
Yeah.
Sony at that point in mid-97 had 47% of the console market. Nintendo had 40, and Sega had 12.
Wow.
So they went...
Yeah.
Within a year and a half, they went from like 43% of the market to 12, which is huge. Price cuts didn't work. Decreased demand in the product. Nobody really wanted it. And then by the end of 1997, Sega of America laid off like 60 of their employees, which is about a quarter of their staff.
Wow.
And then eventually, the Saturn just kind of ended on a very sad note. And with that, Sega turned their attention to the Dreamcast and decided to develop the Dreamcast, which would eventually become their last console in the marketplace. So, like I said before, just a couple of quick hits on this. The launch titles were Virtua Fighter, Panzer Dragoon, and Daytona USA, which I said earlier. Reviews for the Saturn were actually pretty positive. Like Electronics Gaming Monthly at the time gave it an average 8 out of 10.
Oh wow! Okay.
So Sony wound up getting 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 in markets, but it still got a solid review.
Yeah.
It had about 600 games released worldwide on the Saturn.
Wow.
A lot more in Japan than in the U.S. We didn't get 600 in the U.S., but still around 600 games were released. 9.5 million units were sold worldwide, which is not strong.
No, but still more than I expected.
Yep. There were actually two versions of the Saturn that were released. The original one, the controllers had oval buttons, and then the second version of the Saturn, the controller actually had round buttons, fully round buttons.
Which one do you have?
I don't know. I got to look at the controller.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I got to look and see. Over 240 games that were released in Europe for the Saturn were sports games.
Oh my
they had
gosh.
240 sports games.
Of that, probably 239 of them were soccer.
Probably.
Or cricket.
The Saturn had 5 different pinball games, which is huge for a console.
That's weird.
And then the 3 most popular canceled games, one, of course, being Sonic Extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Shenmue was supposed to come out on the Saturn.
Oh, really?
And Virtua Fighter 3 was supposed to come out on the Saturn, but was canceled. And then in retrospect, in 2009, Electronic Gaming Monthly did a best video game console of all time list, and they actually ranked the Saturn 18th on that list because of its unique library, because there were a lot of unique games that actually came out on the Saturn. Sega was always known for making unique games.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
That was their thing. Their games were always different, and they were interesting.
And the Saturn has the one game, in my opinion, the game to try and get, Shining Force 3.
Yes, Shining Force 3, which I will be hunting down eventually because I have a Saturn. I'm sure I'm going to pay a ton of money for it.
It's going to be worth it, but it's going to be pricey.
Well, what's funny is I went on eBay a couple weeks ago because I was like, let me go look and see what Shining Force 3 costs because I got my Christmas bonus, and I'm like, I'll blow it on this. There was, I don't remember, I think there were only 1 or 2 sellers on eBay at the time. It was $1,100.
All right, maybe not that pricey, but that's
a little. I'm sorry, that's way over the top for me for a game. Sorry,
like, I'm thinking, look,
for another $400, I can get that TurboGrafx that we saw.
TurboGrafx CD, yeah.
TurboGrafx CD.
Like, yes, that's a high end game. Shining Force 3 on the Saturn is a high end game, which I would not have a problem. When I say not have a problem, meaning the price for the game itself, like $200. Maybe $250 max. Again, high-end game. But yeah, $1,100, that's a little wacky.
Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that is basically my retro spotlight on the Sega Saturn.
You know what? I'm itching for. I've never owned a Saturn. Now that you have a Saturn, I'm very jealous because that's not cool. Actually, it is cool.
Yep. By the way, thank you, Michael, for giving me your Saturn.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
I promise I'll play it.
And and now. Saturn is on my list. It's my top 3 gets right now for my next systems. Well, Virtual Boy is always number 1, which I may be getting soon.
But you're never getting.
And then a TurboGrafx.
I've already contacted the store.
A TurboGrafx 16, and then a Saturn. So those, hopefully this year, I'll get one of those. But after going through this, Saturn may become number 2. I may have to, because Saturn's a little more easier to get the hands on.
Yeah, the Saturn is easier to get your hands on. I think you can still pick one up for like a couple $100.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not too bad. And to what I was just saying, like I was just reading through the list of games just to see what else was out there. I was like, there's such a diverse amount of games for this system, and they're all going to be brand new to me. So I'm actually very excited to start trying them out.
Awesome. Well, there you go with this week's retro spotlight of the Sega Saturn.
All right, Larry, it's time for another little mini segment, and this week we're going to go with a Did You Know?
Ooh, all right.
So, now, did you know that Michael Jackson, the singer, had a relationship with Sega?
I knew of it because I'm assuming because of the game.
Well, everybody knows the game,
Moonwalker.
Michael Jackson's Moonwalker,
yeah.
Which is a very strange game to play, but still kind of fun. Not gonna lie, I do like playing that game. Now, but what's interesting is, did you know of Michael Jackson's relationship with Sonic the Hedgehog?
Uh-oh.
So,
what happened to poor Sonic?
No, nothing happened to poor
okay.
Sonic. But if you listen to the music in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. You actually may notice that it sounds similar to Michael Jackson's music, like Michael Jackson tunes. Because what happened was Sega asked Michael Jackson to record some sound bits for the Sonic franchise. And according to the composer and musical director for Sega, Michael Jackson wasn't happy with the final project. And the way the music came out. So he actually asked Sega to exclude his name from the credits of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So,
Diva.
Now, Sega's never confirmed or denied this, but, between the composer and musical director and other credible sources, they have said that Michael Jackson did, in fact, produce music for the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 soundtrack.
Wow.
And that is this week's Did You Know?
Well, that's going to be another one in the books this week for the Retro Gamers. This was a fun week. A lot of good stuff.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I like the fact that this week we got to talk a bit about Sega because I feel like we tend to be a little too Nintendo heavy at times, mostly because but Sega was such a big part of, especially it's a big part of retro gaming because they don't have any new systems, so all of their systems are retro. So I really like the fact that we got to give a little Sega love.
Yep.
They deserve it. They definitely deserve it. A big part of my childhood and my teen years.
Yeah, I played. I mean, there's some great games: Castlevania Bloodlines, Sonics. There was a Contra Hardcore that was awesome.
And the most important thing about Sega that I'll never forget is they did not create the god-awful Virtual Boy.
They had Game Gear.
Game Gear was actually a really good handheld system, and it was the first handheld system to be in full color.
Yes.
So I can't knock the Game Gear. Sorry. They also came out with the Sega Nomad, which allowed you to play Genesis games on a handheld system.
Which you can also plug into your TV.
Right. So you got to give it to Sega. Sega was they were very creative when they were trying to break into that market and topple the giant that was Nintendo.
Yeah, and their systems, I mean, maybe short of the 32X, but their systems really, a lot of them were always that. They were a bit groundbreaking. I mean, the Dreamcast, it was having an arcade system in your house. The graphics on the Dreamcast were ridiculous.
Yeah, and not only that, the Dreamcast beat, the PS2 and the Xbox to market. It was the first major system to have a modem installed.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, I feel like the Dreamcast had it come out around the N64 time. Like, if they did not release a Saturn and they just focused on a Dreamcast and came out around the N64, I think the Dreamcast would have probably gone down as one of the greatest systems in video game history.
I'll agree with you. So a good Sega love, like you said, this week. And that, talking about, the homebrews, the hacks, a lot of fun games out there that are still available that you can play on systems.
I want to know when we're getting a Retro Gamers homebrew game. Let me try that again. As soon as someone is kind enough to make a game. All right, so any of our listeners out there that have nothing to do with their lives and want to waste time making a game based on the two of us, we're down for it.
We'll send you out photos.
Well, we'll give you a free T-shirt.
Hey, nice. Speaking of which, you can get your T-shirts, your hats, your mugs, your cell phone cases, soon, hopefully leggings. You can check us out, buy Retro Gamers merch. Please buy Retro Gamers merch. Trust me, we are not going to make millions off of this, but it will help with storage fees and just keeping the show afloat, which is still doing good. It's always in front of you free.
Plus, once I'm going to go out and say, when we sell $100 worth of product, Larry will wear a pair of the Retro Gamers leggings, and we will post that on our page.
Wow. Okay. That is going to be ugly, but still go to pro.tchip.com/theretrogamers. That's pro.tchip.com/theretrogamers. Buy merchandise. It's really awesome. We got some great stuff, posters, and yes, you know what? Whatever. We sell $100 in merchandise. I'll take a picture in Retro Gamers leggings. I will do that. I don't know if they make my size, but we'll see what happens.
Oh, no. Well, even if they don't make your size, you're going to get in them.
Ooh, yikes.
We're going to make that work.
And with that, check everything out. Check us out on Instagram at @the_RetroGamers. Check us out on the Facebook page, facebook.com/RetroGamersPodcast. Email us. Email at theretrogamers.com. With any information.
Email at theretrogamers.com. That is correct.
Yeah. Any information you want to talk about, suggestions, hints, tips, fun stuff to talk about, and, of course, our page, our homepage, theretrogamers.com. Check it all out, and we love bringing this to you. Thank you very much for all your support. And you got anything happening?
No, I don't have anything happening in about 2.5. Well, actually, next week I will be in Las Vegas playing in a hockey tournament, so I'll be checking out the Pinball Hall of Fame. I'll be going back to Gamers Paradise, so I'll probably have some shopping to report to you guys. The following weekend after that, I will be at the SoCal Retro Gaming Expo.
There you go.
That is on January, I believe January 19th and 20th, or is it 20th and 21st? 20th and 21st. January 20th and 21st in City of Industry, California. If anybody in SoCal that listens to us head on down there. It'll be really interesting. You may see me there. I may be wearing a Retro Gamers t-shirt. I do not know.
Nice.
Yes, we will find out. But anyway, it's going to be really fun. They have a couple of tournaments going on there. They're going to have some panels there. They're going to have some video game tournaments. With the price of admission, you get access to free arcade games, arcade cabinets that are going to be there, and then there are going to be a bunch of people selling things. So it's going to be a retro shopper's delight.
Nice.
So if you're in the SoCal area, it's in City of Industry, January 20th and 21st. Come join me.
Retro shopper's delight. Is that anything like? Oh, forget it. I forgot the joke.
Yeah, no, you know what? You can't start a joke unless you can finish it, Larry. You know, this is just not helpful. That was a Virtual Boy level of joke.
Oh, I was going to cut that out. I guess not. All right. Until next week, everyone. We'll catch you next time on the Retro Gamers.